Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon, which is all about the recent budget. Just to introduce myself, I'm Catherine Bennett. I was actually the founder and managing director of Caboodle Technology, an employee benefits and engagement business that was acquired by Access back in 2022. My background is actually in the pay and benefits space and HR space, and I have over 25 years now of working in this industry. When we were acquired, there was a fantastic fit for Caboodle into Access, as we were really able to help Access build out vision in the people division of providing a completely holistic solution when it comes to people. So I'm going to let Dan just briefly introduce himself, and then we will get going with the update.
Yes, thank you very much. Nice to meet you, everybody, and thanks for tuning in today. As Catherine says, my name is Dan Harrison. So I've done about 20 years in the employee benefits industry now, and of the last, I would say, almost 15 of those working for Catherine at Caboodle, and then obviously as we were acquired by Access. So really looking forward to going through this with you guys today. So I think, Catherine, if you're ready, I'll go on to the next.
Yeah, no, that sounds brilliant. So the budget is always an interesting one for me. I think both Dan and myself, we've been in this industry for a long time, as we've said, and we always pay particular attention when there is a budget, because there's usually something in it somewhere that affects pay and benefits. And this one, with all of the talk early on with regards to what may or may not happen with salary sacrifice, etc., did cause some sleepless nights, I have to admit. But when the actual budget was delivered, it was actually quite interesting, and we'll have a look at some of those key areas. I think one thing I do really want to pull out is the backdrop to this budget, because if we look at the Labour manifesto, it was all about not changing income tax rates, not changing VAT, which meant really they have to look at alternative ways of raising money. And that's really where the focus on national insurance and also these tax threshold frees really come in. So this budget is really about people sort of feeling the squeeze, and not just now actually, but in years to come. If you look at the graph that's on the screen at the moment, by 2031, this shows how the tax threshold freezes is really going to have quite a detrimental effect on individuals, with the median person earning a median salary essentially being £943 worse off each year. So that's actually year on year, and that's if we consider this from 2021, which is really when these freezes started. We're actually looking at a situation where we're only very part way into 9 consecutive years of threshold freezes, and what that's doing is basically pulling more and more people into not only higher and additional rate taxpayers. We currently are in a situation where we're going to have 1 in 4 people that will actually be higher or additional rates. And if you compare that in the Guardian article to 2021, it was actually 1 in just under 7. So actually, there's a huge more growth in the number of people that are actually paying higher rates of tax. And I think the staggering statistic on here, and this is since sort of the beginning of the freeze in 2021, 5.2 million more people are actually paying tax. So that's a huge, huge shift. And a lot of this is to do with the increase in national minimum wage, national living wage, which has pushed people into actually paying tax for the first time. So it's really important, because whilst people are seeing their salaries going up and their wages going up, they're actually still feeling the pinch because they're actually paying more tax. So it's really important that from an HR perspective, we're able to respond and we're able to put strategies in place to really support these employees with employee benefits, and also just an understanding of how their pay is constructed, because actually as time goes on, they're really going to feel this pinch.
I think it's worth mentioning, isn't it?
Go on, yeah, go on, Dan.
Sorry, that actually, if you look back at that time period as well, it's not obviously we've had this threshold freeze that has now lasted for quite a long time and is projected to last for significantly longer. But in that time, we've actually had a number of contributory factors that are outside of any of our control, any sort of work or HR or payroll sphere. But if you think we've had a cost of living crisis in there, we've had a couple of global economic crises in there. that actually, yes, this is one of those things that your employees are going to feel the pinch. People are going to be paying more tax, even with the pay rises coming, they're potentially going to be paying more tax. But actually, outside of that, outside of work, that there are a lot of influencing factors that are meaning their money is going less far. I'm sure that's not the word I'm after, but less far than it has done for quite a long time. And actually, as you say, I think our role as as vendors of this sort of thing, but your role previously before you came into this space, and I imagine the people on the call that are likely in HR and payroll, is just how can you support this as best you can, and whether that is by putting things in place like what me and Catherine deal with on a day to day, or just by having a general understanding, having that sort of that framework in place that says, look, we understand the situation. We need you to understand it as well. So actually, you as an employee can plan and be the best version of yourself and plan the best version of your pay packet that you possibly can. I think is just such a really important sort of line in the sand to be able to do.
Totally, Dan, totally. I mean, I think the statistics kind of show that, between since 2020, actually, the national living wage has actually gone up by nearly 46%. So people think, oh, I've got more money, that's fantastic. But actually, what they're not realizing is around them, there is just so much more cost that actually they're incurring. So it's a really valid point. And as I said, really, the employers got quite a large, or can really support employees actually with a lot of the strategies in terms of just helping them get through these difficult times. So yeah, shall we have a look in a little bit more detail at some of these areas that have been specifically called out in this budget? And I think the first one is obviously pensions. And I think the big thing here is to bear in mind that this actually comes in 2029. Now, I know I've sat through budgets where literally you've got 5 days to make a change because it's literally being implemented straight away. But this one isn't. So there is time to plan here. And the change basically means that today people can actually put up to £60,000 into a pension, and there will be no tax or national insurance. They will get tax and national insurance relief on it. And that's actually in 2029 going to be reduced and capped at £2,000. Now, for a lot of people that are feeling this grey drift as they move into higher earners, for those people that are earning between sort of 40, 45, £50,000, they're the ones that are going to be quite impacted by this, because actually they are actually paying the higher rate of national insurance. So they're paying 8%. And if you're in the higher income tax bracket, then you'll be paying 2%. So there's quite a big impact for them. Also, from an organisation perspective, if you're employing a lot of people that are perhaps slightly older, you've got a lot of employees on slightly higher salaries, a lot of people today will want to be putting their pension putting bonuses into a pension pot. And actually, it's typically higher earners that will do that. Now, they'll probably still want to do it because there's no change to income tax relief. So they will still get income tax relief on it. It is just the national insurance. And from an employer perspective, obviously that is going to cost 15% in line with the new NI rates. So it's still positive for individuals certainly, and companies up to the £2,000 mark. But it is about really delving into that strategy in terms of actually what is the plan over the next few years before we get to 2029 to really maximise the savings that can be made. We have also obviously talked about tax. Sorry, do you want to mention anything about that, Dan? In terms
No,
of
I think I was just thinking. I suppose there's two things that I would say, and I probably would have said them at the end anyway, but I'll say them now. Is there's two things that I think are really important from this. Is one, exactly like you said at the beginning. At least we're not doing this on a 5-day turnaround, so it's not sleepless nights and system changes and masses and masses of spreadsheets for everyone on this call and trying to get everything through and working with vendors to make it all work. So at least we've got the benefit of some time, right? The shortest turnaround we've got is a couple of years away on the, well, obviously minimum wage comes every year, but the shortest turnaround for the big sort of changes that we were and weren't expecting, we've got a couple of years to the electric car thing. But I think the other thing is what this does give us time to do, and give you guys on the call time to do, is sort of make hay while the sun shines. So we've got a period of time where we have these baked in rules on SALSAC, on pensions, on cars, on things like that, where actually they are still really good routes to tax and NI efficiency for employees, NI efficiency for businesses, good retirement plans and pots for employees. So I think one of the really big things, and obviously we'll talk more towards the end of the webinar, is if ever there was a really good time to get your house in order and make sure that everything is working exactly as it should be and that everybody knows what's available to them, that time is absolutely now.
Absolutely. We've mentioned quite a bit in terms of tax thresholds and obviously them freezing on the previous slide. But I think it is worth noting that whilst salaries have been going up, and people have typically seen somebody on national living wage has seen a 34% increase in their base pay. Actually, they've seen over a 50% or almost a 50% increase in the amount of tax they're paying. So again, it's this imbalance between the amount of additional money people are receiving and the amount of tax that they're paying that's going up all the time. And as Dan mentioned before, that's with the backdrop of still a cost of living crisis, still having headlines about food increases, etc., etc. So it's something really to be mindful, and we can look at ways that we can address that. The other introduction, and again, this is from April 28, so again, it's not immediate, but is the mileage-based electric vehicle tax that's going to be introduced. Now, that's at 3p per mile for an electric vehicle and actually drops to 1.5p for hybrid vehicles. And again, at the moment, the government earns 25 billion on fuel tax. And, the predictions are by the time we get to 2020, if they don't do anything about this, actually that will have halved, that 25 billion will have halved. And by 2050, it will actually be almost zero. We will be moved away from fuel. So they have to do something, and obviously this is the plan with regards to it. Now, the 3p per mile, the average person will do about 8,500 miles per year, and it will typically cost them around £255 in tax. The positive thing about vehicles and electric vehicle schemes is that they are still a full salary sacrifice. There is no £2,000 cap on this, so it's still like cycle to work. And again, I know there was a lot of noise before this budget in terms of cycle to work could get capped, electric vehicles potentially could, but actually they are still uncapped. So there's still full tax and NI savings with only very, very small amounts of benefit in kind coming in. So there's still a very attractive benefit to be promoting, and actually from both an employer and an employee perspective still look to be really attractive. And the final one that obviously is going up is the national living wage. So again, for our 21-year-olds plus, we're going up from £12.21 to £12.71, which is a 4.1% increase. Now, I know obviously in April this year there was a much larger increase, so it's that has still got a direction of travel, which again for customers and companies that are employing large numbers of lower earners, it does have a big impact when you've got a high labour force. So particularly those businesses that are in hospitality, that are in retail and even health and social care, this has a real impact, this minimum wage going up. Now, there's actually slightly bigger increases for the 18 to 21-year-olds. They get an 8.5% increase. So the national minimum wage for them will go up to £10.85, and it's a slightly smaller increase for the apprentices and under 18s, with it going up to just over £8. So there's definitely the need to support these employees. And again, the piece that I would emphasise is with those rates going up all the time, the key thing is actually the tax thresholds being held kind of go hand in hand, because more of those national living wage employees will be paying tax as we move forward. So I don't know whether it's worth us now just delving into a little bit more about what we can have a look at from a strategic perspective.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the sort of if we're to, phase this webinar, if you like, that was phase one where we looked at what's come in. And I think the things we can take away from that is there is sizable change come in, right? There's no two ways about it. That budget, whilst none of it is tomorrow, we've got time to plan it, there are sizable changes coming. And I think one of the things that change typically drives is a look at the present, right? It's a look at what do we look like right now and how well prepped are we for these changes. And obviously some of that will be looking at your HR and payroll systems to see how you set up for capping, pension changes and mileage changes and things like that. But actually, I think one of the most important things you can do is to take advantage of the rules that we have in place now, of the availability of these sort of benefits and things that do generate great tax and NICS returns for employees and NICS returns for you guys as employers. And actually, there's a few different ways you can do it, right? So, as Catherine said, minimum pay as minimum rates of pay have gone up, which if you're an employee is going to feel good, right? You're getting a little bit more money in your pocket each month. But actually, with the threshold being frozen, they're trapped. They're now paying more tax on what was slightly more money, and the tax increase is probably a higher percentage than the pay increase in reality. So one of the key things you can do is help them make their net pay go as far as possible, right? Put things in place for them. That can be something structured through someone like us, where you've got access to lots and lots of instant discounts, shopping discounts, and cinema discounts, and holidays and groceries and everything you can think of. You can put them in place very quickly, very easily, incredibly low cost to you guys. And actually for employees, what that does is says, right, okay, you've got, your pay is X, but actually because you get 5% off at Sainsbury's and 7% off at Airbnb and 10% off at Green King, actually buying your groceries, going on holiday and having a pint is all slightly cheaper than it was. So we're helping you combat inflation. We're helping you make your pay go as far as possible by giving you this centralized pot of discounts that you can use for almost anything. And obviously Christmas, fabulous time to do it. People are constantly spending, but there's no bad time to introduce the ability for your employees to make their pay go as far as possible. I think the other thing that we can do
just also on that one piece, it is really important because where these benefits will really, really help employees is quite often employees that aren't necessarily sat at computers. These are going to be typically employees that are perhaps out and about. They might be on the shop floor. They might be serving customers, etc. So one of the things to really think about is the communication strategy that goes with with implementing these benefits, because what we tend to find when we're running benefits is once somebody starts using them and starts taking advantage of these discounts, they use them over and over again. The challenge comes when people aren't really aware of just how easy it can be to actually use them. So that's something that I think definitely, there's lots of different things on communications, but just getting that message out to employees is really, really key.
Yeah, and I think discounts is one of those cut-through benefits, right? It doesn't matter how much you're paid, what role you're doing, where you are. Everybody loves to be able to save money, especially if it's normally people get bought in with a big ticket item. The first thing they buy is typically like their fridge breaks and they need to buy a new one, so they'll get a Curry's discount card, or they buy they go on holiday and they want to save some money and they'll buy a Jet2 or a TUI or whatever gift card that they're buying. And actually they go, oh, right, nice, I've just saved £200 or whatever it is. And that's how we hook them. That's how we get them into then going, oh, but I could actually, while 5% off a 150 quid Sainsbury's voucher doesn't feel massive at the time, when I look back across the year and realize I've had 3 weeks worth of free food shop because I've been religious about actually getting my Sainsbury's discount every time, or Tesco or Asda or whoever it might be, that it's great. And actually if we can get them, and this is I suppose a really great thing to go along with side communication, obviously we want to get you communicating, and if you go again something like us, we're going to give you free posters and leaflets and email templates, but you guys would all have communication internally, whether it's email, whether it's groups, whether it's messaging groups, whether it's a poster in the canteen, whatever, however you're talking to your employees, this is a great thing to talk about. But actually, if you do work with us or someone like us, having everything in one place makes this really simple, because again, we can get them on with discounts and we can expose them to everything else. And that's actually a really great opportunity to do things like total reward statements. So you might already have a fabulous benefits package. It might already be brilliant. They might already have healthcare and discounts and financial well-being and mental health well-being and the whole 9 yards in one brilliant package. But actually, if your employees don't realize it's there, or they know it's there, but they don't realize the value of it, it's sort of not, I can't think of a really nice way of saying it, but it's not money well spent, is it? If you guys have got the best benefits package in the world, but actually people don't realize that it exists or don't realize how valuable it is to them, it might as well not be there. And actually, a total reward statement is a really good opportunity to say to people, look, your salary is 35 grand, but did you know, because we pay for your healthcare, that's another 2 grand, and we pay for your life insurance, that's another grand. And actually, we give you access to an average £700 a year worth of shopping discounts. That's another 700 quid. So all of a sudden, your 35k salary is 45k because of how much you invest in them in a benefit solution. And I think that's a really nice message to get to people. And actually, it's a really great thing for them to be able to look at. And it re-encourages them, A, to think this is a really decent job. And if they are getting itchy feet and they're starting to look at what the competitors are offering or whatever, well, they're not comparing like for like anymore. They're not comparing 35k versus 36. They're comparing 35k versus 45k, every single time. It makes it a lot more difficult equation when they are looking.
I think so. Just on the TRS as well, there's also another area, another angle to it, particularly in the light of the amount of tax that people are paying and actually people moving into different tax brackets, etc. Is that whilst they're having more money, you're going to be giving potentially cost of living increases, etc. They might almost sit there and think, well, hang on a minute, what's happening to my money? Why do I feel poorer even though I'm actually having pay increases? And actually, that's something that you can really help them with through total reward statements, with them just understanding the makeup of their pay, and understanding exactly what you as a business are actually doing to support that can really generate some good employee engagement and loyalty.
Yeah, that's right, and it's a good opportunity to get a message across. So if you've got a big kick on getting people to invest in their pension, TRS is a great communication channel because they'll be looking at their package, they'll be seeing all the things that are available to them, and you can use that as a moment in time to say, look, did you know that we match up to 7% pension contributions, for example, or we match up to 5, and whatever it might be. That is your moment in time where you've got their attention. They are focused on benefits and salary. It's a really great time to encourage them to do other things. And actually, salary sacrifice benefits have been a winner now for a long time. They're still a winner right this second, and they hopefully, fingers crossed, will be for many more years to come. And again, having one single place where actually your employees can come to find all of their benefits is going to make encouraging uptake on those benefits so much easier. Because if I think about it as a normal consumer, right? Why do I shop so much on Amazon? Well, because everything's there. I don't have to go to 10 different websites. I don't have to visit 15 different shops. I don't need to enter my payment details 100 different times. I go to Amazon and I can buy everything from dog food to canoes. I don't need to go to the canoe shop and the dog food shop. I've got them in one shop. This is what we're effectively saying to you as employers and your employees is you can find everything in one place here. And obviously, if you're already an Access customer, so if you're on our People XD software or some of our other HR software, then actually you get double bubble because XD is in the exact same environment as our benefit solution, Salary Extras. Salary Extras takes all its data from XD, so you're not introducing any more admin for you guys in HR and pay because actually Salary Extras is going to directly call the data from XD. So we're going to make sure all your joiners, your leavers, and your changes are completely automated. We're going to automate the vast majority of the benefit administration straight into payroll as well. So you guys are really potentially introducing a massive suite of benefits that are going to feel good for employees, but not the admin that would typically come with that. So that obviously is a huge thing. And for employees from an end user, one username and password gets you everywhere. You go in, you look at your pay slip, you check how much holiday you've got left to book, and then in one click, you're through to your benefits platform where you are getting a big discount on your holiday that you've realized you've got left to book, and then also getting some shopping vouchers to go and buy some new swim shorts and a pair of goggles and whatever else you're doing, maybe not if you're going skiing. But you've got this simple journey for both users. So for me as a user, I've got a really one click and I'm in and I find everything I need to in one place. For Catherine, as my boss, she's got a one-click journey to be able to approve all my various different benefit applications. And then I think that's sort of the functional side of it, right? And without trying to be too pitchy,
I think
that's
it's
something that
also just worth mentioning there as well, the whole sort of eligibility element of it as well, which
yeah,
can
of
pull
course.
through dynamically as well. Because again, you're going to have, there's so many employees in so many different places that potentially you need to offer slightly different things to different employee groups. And again, really to maximise some of the savings that can be made on the salary sacrifice schemes, and things like holiday trading are not going to be relevant to everybody, but they're certainly relevant to a certain demographic. So being able to purely display that to those individuals that it's relevant for is something that can be done really seamlessly behind the scenes as you go forward with integration.
Exactly. And that happens during implementation. So it's not, again, not something we would ever expect you guys to put a lot of time into. It would be a bit of thought during implementation to make sure we get those packages right and that we're communicating it properly. But then from there, you can rely on the systems talking to each other to make sure the right person sees the right benefits. So you get those perfectly personalized benefits for the right groups of employees. And I think, as I say, that is, functionally your core benefit suite they are some things that you can do. And to be honest, they're not even in direct retribution is the wrong word, reaction to this budget. They are just good habits to have. They're good things to put in place. They make a lot of sense. They help your employees make the most of it. I think where you can look
And I
at
think
really
where you say they're not in response to this, I'm not going to completely contradict you on a webinar. However, one of the points that I would raise is that it is really important from an HR and benefits perspective that every penny spent is really kind of well spent, and actually every employee has the best package for them as an individual. So that piece around actually making sure that we are offering you, or you as an organisation are offering the right benefits to maximise both the value to the employee and also to yourselves as a business, and really maximise those savings is actually really important, given the fact that, you know, in 2031, we're going to have people £943 worse off than they are today. It's really important that we do the best we can with their benefit package.
Nope, an excellent point, and I forgive you for contradicting me. It is a very good point, right? But I think more it's just they're good for everything, but for right now, for looking at this, and as I used that phrase earlier on, it is great for making hay while the sun shines, right? We know we've got a time limit now. We know we've got a fixed period of time where we can make the most of it. Let's make the most of it. Just conscious we are coming up to time, so I'm going to race through these last little bits. I think you guys will probably have some elements of these in place. You might have really comprehensive elements, and this is again a very similar story to what I was saying a minute ago. But we've got within our suite, we have a wealth of health and well-being tools, of financial well-being tools, of mental health well-being tools. We have libraries and podcasts and live lectures and lots of different suites of things that you can give to your employees. And I think on the back of a budget, and a budget is one of those things that in my role, in Catherine's role, and probably in all of your guys' roles, I imagine most of us, wherever we could, we probably sat down and watched the budget, right? We sat down, we had a sandwich, we watched the budget, we digested it. You know, we were very fortunate, not so fortunate to be Rachel Reeves, but it was leaked 20 minutes early. So we had a bit of a chunk of time to actually get to grips with it before they even started arguing with each other in Parliament. So most people won't have done that. So for most people, the budget is just the headlines that they're reading in the BBC or Sky or the Telegraph or the Times or the Guardian or wherever they're getting their news. They are getting snippet headlines that says, you're poorer, there's more tax, inflation's up, inflation's down, the pound's up, the pound's down, which to some people will mean a lot, to some people will mean a little, to some people it will have no impact whatsoever. And I think being able to offer them education and help and support and guidance on the things that are relevant to them is incredibly important. And I think being able to put these things in place where actually they can have almost a self-determined journey, so they don't feel like well-being is being foisted on them by their employer, but they do feel like their employer has got their back when they need that support. And actually, if they're moving up the tax band and they're feeling their pay packet shrink because actually their tax is going up, that is a pretty often common trigger for people to reach out for financial well-being support, just as Catherine has said a couple of times, to understand my pay packet. Why is my pay packet, my pay's gone up, but not by as much as I thought it would? Why have I got this pay rise and I'm only seeing 30% of it? That sort of thing is actually a really big trigger for people to come and reach out. And again, without trying to sound like I'm repeating myself over and over, having it all in one place so that employees know where to go. They don't have to try and find this stuff. They don't need to ask directions. It's all in one place, and it always is in one place, and it's where they expect to find it, which is when they're in their people software, when they're in looking at payroll, checking a benefit, increasing their pay, whatever they're doing. If they can find everything they expect to in that journey when they're in that pay and people related journey anyway, I think it makes it so much easier. And obviously, the last one is always going to be a bit of a plug from me, is, working with an experienced provider, whether that's us, or whether that's someone else. But I think having vendors in place who are living and breathing this stuff, who it's their only role is to understand employee benefits. And me and Catherine have done literally nothing but benefits for a long time, back when I had hair. It makes a really big difference because actually you don't have to worry so much about the compliance piece. You're not thinking, oh, my salary sacrifice agreement's all going to need changing, or am I going to need to do a load of compliance work to make sure that I'm getting employees on the right thing? All of that becomes, well, that's my vendor's problem. I know it needs to happen, but my vendor's the one that actually needs to make it happen. And I think having that as a sort of security blanket is really important. I'll just move through to the last slide. So I think just to round us off, and obviously, Catherine, if there's anything else you want to say, there are a couple of questions I need to answer in a second. Obviously, if you do need support, we are here to help. So our employee benefits and engagement experts, there's not just me and Catherine, there's quite a number of us, and I think the average length of service in our consultancy team is about 10 years now, so we're a fairly well-travelled bunch. we're more than happy to have a call. There's no obligation. It's not like you have to sign up on the phone while we're there. We're quite happy to have a look at what you're doing now, whether you've got questions, whether it's just you want to pick our brains and understand how we do things versus how you're doing things now. All inquiries welcome, and I can talk about this stuff, as I think I'm proving pretty adeptly here, endlessly, almost endlessly. So do reach out, get in touch, give us a shout if there's anything that we can do. Anything you want to add, Catherine, before I go to the questions?
No, I think you're doing a really, really good job summarising it, and I am very conscious of time as well. I think we scheduled this for half an hour, and we're kind of at the half an hour mark. But no, we would very much love to have further conversations with anybody. And as I said, that can be very on an informal basis, just to have a review of where you're at and give you some pointers and directions in terms of our thoughts, etc.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Questions then. So the first one is, does your system automatically take these changes into account? I'm going to assume by changes it means the budget changes and things. And if that's the case, then yeah. So our system will obviously always be compliant. We're working, we've done changes, as Catherine said, when they did the cycle scheme changes a little while ago. They were, 3 days, 4 days, something like that. We've had big budgets, mini budgets that were immediately overturned, mini budgets that then U-turned back on themselves twice to make an O. The system keeps you up to date and makes sure that you guys are compliant. And then the last one is,
it's also worth calling out from a national minimum wage perspective as well. There is checks and there's ways that we can put sort of false ceilings, false floors in for national minimum wage, so a national living wage. So actually over a 12-month period, people still don't drop below it and things like that. So
yeah, absolutely right.
Consideration.
Yes, that's fine. So I think that's really important. And the last one is, have you got any advice for helping staff manage commuting costs? We're keen for us teams to come back into the office, into the workplace from remote, but it's a tricky conversation with the cost of living, especially after the budget. That is a tricky conversation. It is obviously harder after the budget now, with everything being the way it is. I think there's a couple of things we can do. So one, there are commuting loans that are available. So you guys can obviously lend employees money interest-free to get season ticket loans that enable them to then buy annual tickets and things like that, which makes their travel a lot cheaper. We've got a scheme or a couple of different routes that we can facilitate for that for you, whether it's just a simple application value and receipt evidence all the way up to something more complex than that. That is absolutely fine. We can work with you guys. Obviously, we do also then have discounts and things that we can work with you guys and say, well, actually, is there something we can do in terms of the discounts that can help them if there's particular travel on a particular route? The other thing that I would say is you'll typically find, and you guys probably, almost all of you guys, I bet, have something like this in local offices and things like that, is you've probably got local arrangements. So you've probably got arrangements with bus companies or train companies where you might get a little bit of a discount because they work for you guys. You flash the badge and you get a little bit extra off. And the same goes for things like pubs and restaurants. Actually, they are the benefits that make your package, the stuff that's local, the stuff that feels laser focused on those employees that it's relevant to, are the things that really get people coming back over and over and over again. Because yes, fine, we can all offer a pension or healthcare or something like that, and they're brilliant benefits, right? But they're not the prettiest benefits. They're not the ones that people talk about down the pub. Whereas if you offer 10% off at that said pub, that is a brilliant benefit, because that people will talk about, and that benefit travels. It doesn't just go, Dan takes the benefit, Dan's happy that Dan's got the benefit. That is probably Dan goes home, takes his wife and potentially his kids out for a meal and goes, oh, we only get this because I work at XYZ, or he takes his mum and his dad and all that sort of stuff. So yes,
I think
very.
there's a couple of other schemes that I also wouldn't forget about, and one of them, as quite a keen cyclist, is even cycle to work. Cycle to work is a really cost-effective way for somebody to cycle to the office. That's still fully exempt from tax and NI, etc. So is a really really great benefit. You having things thrown at you there, Dan?
That's ridiculous what just happened. A dog was playing with that and just flicked it with his mouth across the screen. So apologies, everyone, for the.
The other one that I would also mention that it is worth looking at, and again, this scheme is actually quite good even for younger employees, is introducing something like an electric vehicle scheme, because with all the tax savings, it really does make it very affordable, and the cost of electric vehicles has come down so much. And the schemes that you can look at actually include things like insurance. So if you've got younger drivers that typically have got a huge cost when it comes to car insurance, actually it can be a really cost-effective way of getting them mobile, basically. So yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff, I think, on the commuting side that can really support.
Yep, absolutely. And the car one in particular, I think the cycle scheme is fantastic, and especially if your commute is reasonable. But the car one
Yeah,
is a sort of for everybody. And I think
yeah,
with exactly as you say, car costs coming down, electric car costs coming down, there's still a subsidy in place that means that they're even cheaper than they would be because actually there's a subsidy on it. And even with the 3P coming out in 2028, there's still
yeah.
going to be ludicrously positive return on investment for that as an employee when you look at exactly how much it would cost. And that is all the questions we had. So I suppose that leaves us just to say thank you very much, everybody, for attending today. We hope you've appreciated mine and Catherine whittering on about the budget. I hope we've been as useful as we can be. We do hope to hear from you all soon, but if we don't, then have a wonderful Christmas and whatever holiday you're celebrating, and we'll see you all in the new year.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.